by being the first woman ambassador of Greece to the United States, and having been the first woman permanent representative of Greece to the European Union. She has held a number of very important diplomatic positions, being the head of the diplomatic cabinet of the Prime Minister of Greece, Prime Minister Mitsotakis, Director General for European Affairs in charge of the Greek Presidency of the European Union in 2014, head of the Greek Liaison Office in Skopje, now in Northern Macedonia, and Deputy Permanent Representative of Greece to the United Nations. She also served as head of the European Union Rule of Law Mission in Kosovo. Ambassador Papadopoulou, it's again a distinct honor to have you here with us, and the Ambassador, Her Excellency, will talk to us today about developments in the Eastern Mediterranean and the role of Greece. Ambassador, once again, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Vanitopoulos. It's really a pleasure to be here. Thank you all for attending this discussion. And it's an honor to present the views of Greece about our geographical neighborhood at Fletcher School, and especially Karamanlis Foundation, because Karamanlis is the founder of modern Greek state after the Second World War, in the respect that he was the visionary who drove Greece to the European Union, anchored Greece in the then experiment of what became later the European Union, and as such it ushered a new era in Greek life, in Greek politics, in Greek society. So it's, I remember Karamanlis in my youth, and he was a legendary figure, something like, for an American audience, a combination of Kennedy and Truman, and it's an honor to be having this discussion with you. Before I speak about the role and the position of Greece in Eastern Mediterranean, I would like to define the geographical region of Eastern Mediterranean, because in our view, in the way we see that in Greece, it's a much broader area than simply very strictly the East Mediterranean basin. It's a region that starts from the Gulf countries all the way to Western Balkans, because all these elements, the Gulf countries, the Middle East, Turkey, Greece, Eastern Mediterranean, Cyprus, and the Balkans, it's one unity. What happens in one area affects the other. So when we're speaking about Eastern Mediterranean, we cover all this extensive region. And what we see today in this extensive region is many changes. I would say tidal changes that change the map, change the attitudes, change the architecture. We have one more bigger phenomenon in the world today, is that the security architecture that was built after the Second World War is fading away. This is a natural historical phenomenon. I don't say it's good, I don't say it's bad, it's something that is happening. So the old world order, security order is fading away, a new one is about to be built. We don't know how it's going to look, and when you are in transitional historical times, everything is possible, everything is probable, and everybody has to be very careful about what's going on, because it will affect the lives of generations to come. So if this is true for the entire world, it's more true in a volatile region which historically has been at the forefront of changes, and that's the Eastern Mediterranean wider region. What are the characteristics of these historical transitional times? First of all, we have a superpower who is changing its role, who is in trying to define for itself another role. This is the United States. We have another possible superpower who is trying to assert its place in the world in ways that they're still searching for ways to do it, and this is China. And in the security void that's created in between the two, you have some regional powers who vie for position, who who vie to advance their interests the way and their position in the region, the way they see this position, the way they see their interests, the way they project themselves in the future. In the wider Eastern Mediterranean region, these two regional powers are Russia and Turkey. Russia playing the role of the eternal spoiler, and Turkey playing the role of somebody who is searching for all glory. Both of them have dreams about themselves. What they want, we can discuss a lot about which each one of them wants. But in doing so, in trying to assert themselves and their positions in the future, their adversaries and at the same time they cooperate very closely. They complement each other and they are going against each other. This goes hand in hand. It's not contradictory. This is what's happening. And that product is that they divide. They divide the areas where they get involved. And they take advantage, both of them, of the void we left, but the one superpower rethinking its role, the new superpower trying to find its role, and the European Union, which could be a superpower, having internal problems and conflicts, and trying to define a role for themselves, above, first of all, in who they are, what they want to achieve, and finding a new internal balance, especially after the withdrawal of the United Kingdom. So you see, this is a very, very changing world, with a lot of unknown factors, a lot of ifs, and a lot of instability and a lot of uncertainty. And there goes Greece. What Greece has to offer in this environment? First of all, it's a democratic country. It's a stable democratic country. It has been a democratic country since we remember ourselves. It's a country that is governed, there is rule of law, a respect for human rights, and on top of everything else, in the last 10 years, going through a severe economic crisis, Greece proved that it can contain social cohesiveness, can maintain social cohesiveness. The Greek society showed a unique resilience in fighting this severe economic crisis, stick together, and at the same time defeat the voices of extremism. Because at the height of the Greek economic crisis, we witnessed in Greece a surge of extreme right and extreme left, but mainly extreme right voices that if they left unchecked, tend to undermine democratic institutions. But they didn't manage to do it. They failed. With the crisis, within the crisis, still these voices are not heard, and their political aspirations completely collapsed. What does this tell us? That you have a country where society can defend itself. Society can stick together, face problems, face unique problems, and still maintain the principles on which the foundation of the country are relied upon. So, what else is Greece? Is a member of the European Union and NATO, both being the pillars of modern European edifice, security, economic, and hopefully in the future political. In this respect, Greece is the natural exporter of peace, stability, and prosperity. Free economy, free markets economy, democratic rule of law, human rights. So it's an example for the rest of the world. It's an example for the rest of the region, which faces a lot of socio-economic problems and also a wave of extremism that goes from one end to the other, from the Gulf all the way to the Balkans. How is Greece playing this role? It's twofold. Of course, the participation in EU and NATO, but also through regional cooperation. Greece is a medium-sized country. We're not very powerful, we're not too big. Our economy, as I said, faces a lot of problems. We live in a volatile region between three continents. But the survival, the means for survival that we found is regional cooperation. And maybe this is the way forward in the future. Regional cooperation with like-minded countries that base their policies on the same basic principles. And even when they disagree on certain issues, they always find a way to move forward together. Because in today's world, nobody can prosper and survive at the expense of anybody else. What we can add to that? First of all, the natural historical affinity that Greece has with its Arab neighbors. This goes deep in history. We share a lot of experiences, and we always are very close. Greece has no imperial past, and that stands well with our neighbors to the south. Then we have a very strong security partnership with Israel. In this way, we can work both ways. And when it goes to the Western Balkans, Greece has always been in the driver's seat in order to push for the Western Balkans in the Euro-Atlantic family. After the fall of Yugoslavia, Greece, the only member of the European Union and NATO in the Balkans, we were the ones who took Romania and Bulgaria first, and now the rest of the Western Balkans took them by the hand and pushed their candidacy into the European Union, membership in the European Union, and membership into NATO. Now the candidacy in the European Union of the rest of the Western Balkans who are not still members of the European Union. And we do all this because we believe, as I said, that only if the entire region, north and south of Greece, is firmly anchored in the principles that the European Union is aspiring to achieve, freedom, rule of law, democracy, human rights, equal regional cooperation, cooperation among equals. This is the only way forward, especially in very difficult and volatile times like the ones we're living. But of course, the picture is not rosy because, as I said, there are the two spoilers in the region, Russia and Turkey. And Russia is the main spoiler. But in our view, what Russia wants to do really is to create a problem in every possible way, in every possible region, area in our region, so that they're taken seriously. After the fall of the Soviet Union, the big problem for Russia is that it lost its status as superpower. So they want to have a seat at the table as a superpower, despite the fact that they're no longer. So their profession is professional spoiler. But when it comes to Turkey, this is not about spoiling the picture. Turkey has dreams of an imperial past. Turkey considers that the last 100 years of the peace and the equilibrium, the balance of power that was established in this part of the world 100 years ago is not in its favor. So they think that this is an historical opportunity, that in these transitional historical times, to reclaim the influence and the spheres of influence they enjoyed during the Ottoman times. They do it through means that are of questionable acceptance and quality, by militarizing the foreign policy, using force, military force in various areas like Syria, Libya, Iraq, Nagorno-Karabakh, and by using threat of force in all other regions. You know, the map of the Middle East and the Balkans can change very easily. And we see tidal changes, especially in the Middle East. We saw before we had the divide between Arabs and Israel. Now the divide is not between Arabs and Israel. It is between moderate states being Arab or Israeli, and the extremist forces. It's this divide that is taken advantage of by Turkey in order to push these imperial dreams forward. How we go about in the future, I think it's a number one priority for all of us to contain this kind of destabilization efforts. We have to work together, and all this regional cooperation that Greece is pushing forward, and the regional schemes to which Greece belongs, they are not exclusive of, and we don't exclude anybody. It's very important that we all live together and that we all cooperate together. We don't mean and we don't want Turkey or anybody for that reason to be excluded. The way that nobody wants anybody to have imperial power and spheres of influence of everybody else, the same way nobody wants anybody else to be excluded. But in order for us to work together in this new world, we have to at least agree on some basic issues. And the most basic of these issues is that problems are solved through dialogue. The threat of force or use of force is not an acceptable means of diplomacy. After all, we go against the Charter of the UN. So we have to respect these basic rules. And not all of us necessarily share the same goals. Not all of us necessarily share the same means. But at least we have to share basic things, which means we have to respect each other, we have to accept each other in its own particularities. Each one of us has its own particularities. We have to help each other, and we have to build a region based on the rule of law and principles of peace and stability. Nobody has the right to destabilize the region, this being Turkey or Greece or anybody else, for its own issues, for its own interests, because in the end, it's nobody's interests that are served like that. We live through volatile times, difficult times, transitional times, as I said many times before, but the only way that we can face this uncertainty, because there is uncertainty, I mean, all of us feel that, is to stick together and move forward, try to work together, because we face also a lot of common challenges, like climate change, economic challenges, immigration. There are a lot of issues that are common to all of us. None of us is immune to that, and there is no solution for climate change only for one country or for another. We have to deal with all these issues together, but we have to live together, not only if we work together, not when we threaten each other. And this is the number one, the cardinal rule to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Ambassador, for this brilliant tour d'horizon and your analysis on the situation in the Eastern Mediterranean and Greece's role. And I want our viewers to start asking questions. We're going to have a Q&A period for another 35 to 40 minutes. So until we get the first question, let me use the prerogatives of the chair and ask you if you would care to comment about the state of Greek-American relations. After some time, we see that relations are in their best phase. And I wonder whether you would care to comment a little bit on that.
Yes, it's the best it could be. First of all, I have to say that Greece and the US, we have something very particular in common. We always were on the same side. For 200 years, 200 plus since the United States was founded, 200 the next year since the modern Greek state started, we never fought on different sides. We were always on the same side in every aspect. But like as in every family, there are difficult moments and difficult times. The most difficult times in the Greek-American relationship was after the Turkish invasion of Cyprus, and because it was also the Turkish invasion of Cyprus, but came after the dictatorship. And it was common knowledge in Greece that the US supported the dictatorship. But things changed, and I have to acknowledge President Clinton when he came to Greece on his official visit, when he really apologized for that. And from that moment on, I think things started to get better and better. And the Greek population and the Greek political system really appreciated all of the help that the U.S. government gave to Greece during the economic crisis. We had an ally, a real friend in the U.S. government in those very difficult years. It was appreciated and it changed everything. Today, all the Greek political forces agree on the value of the Greek-U.S. strategic relationship. There is no difference on the political level. There is no difference of opinion on the level of society. We work together. We have common interests, like in the Western Balkans. Secretary of State Pompeo was in Greece 2 weeks ago, and it was a very interesting visit because he went to Thessaloniki and he went to Chania, Crete. He didn't go to Athens, and it was very important because he gave 2 messages. When he went to Thessaloniki, the focus was on the Western Balkans, on the strategic partnership of Greece and the United States in the Western Balkans. Greece is, as I said, at the driver's seat to get all these countries to the European Union and NATO. We did that since the fall of Yugoslavia, and now we do that with renewed force. We are a beacon of stability for the Western Balkans. We have very close economic ties. These countries are anchored to Greece through economy, energy, and political alliance. And in this, we work very closely together with the United States. So when Secretary Pompeo went to Chania, Crete, there the focus was on the smaller region of the Eastern Mediterranean, the relationship with Turkey, the military relationship between Greece and the United States. Most of you know that in Crete there is one of the most precious and important U.S. military bases in the world, Suda Bay. And according to the MDCA, the defense agreement, mutual defense agreement that was updated last year, the Suda Bay American base is expanded. The military cooperation between the two countries is expanded. We work together on all sorts of military political intelligence sharing. And this was the manifestation of this new relationship, which we hope it's going to enhance even further, because both Greece and the U.S. face similar challenges in that region. Of course, the U.S. is a much bigger country, has a different approach. We're a smaller country, but we live there. Our future is there. We cannot move out. So for us, it's a matter of life and death. But the U.S. has strategic interest in the Eastern Mediterranean, and in that respect, Greece is the most reliable ally to the U.S. in that region.
Thank you. We do have a couple of questions from our audience. The first is, regardless of who is elected, if and when you are called to the White House, what would you tell the new President of the United States about Greek-Turkish affairs?
That regardless of, I'm the Greek ambassador, of course I see things through the Greek point of view, but I will try to put myself in the shoes of an American. If Eastern Mediterranean is important for U.S. interests in the world, and I think it is important for many reasons, and I'll explain to them, then you cannot afford to have any spoiler, anybody there who upsets an already very delicate balance. Regardless of who is this country. It could be Turkey, it could be Greece, it could be Italy, it could be Egypt, it could be anything. Nobody can be allowed to do as they please, because this balance that was achieved 100 years ago was achieved through a world war and through a lot of blood on behalf of everybody. Everybody shed blood. So we have 100 years of peace. This peace, nobody was completely satisfied of the peace that was achieved 100 years ago. We lost, Turkey lost, Syria lost, everybody lost. But it was achieved. And we lived through 100 years of peace and stability. So upsetting it because somebody dreams of past glory is a cardinal sin, and it's not going to go for any place. It's going to end up with why there is all sides, Republicans, Democrats, everybody, that China is a major challenge to the US in the future. Beautiful. Okay, how do you do it? How you face off? How you handle it? And definitely you don't handle it by bombing Beijing. I mean, nobody says so. So this region is the gateway to Europe. If China is trying to get into Europe, politically, economically, you name it. And the gateway to Europe is through this region, number one. Number two, China is energy hungry, and their main supplier of energy resources is through the Middle East. Okay, I don't think you need any more reasons.